Mike is here with an update on the Miggy Watch.
Oh, at this point, and maybe I'm crazy here, but I think there's dust starting to build on the home run 499 sign in the outfield. He's been stuck there for more than a week. It was 2-on-2 basketball, where you can break all the rules and the law of gravity. The 2017 and 2019 winner really struggled, bogeying 4 of her first 9 holes and is now in danger of missing the cut. He was given the boot by the Lions, the only team he's ever played for. Oh, but it gets worse. It also happened to be his 40th birthday. Ryan Blaney won the Firekeepers Casino 400, beating out the man who's dating his sister. And that would be William Byron. It's too early to say if the Pistons made the right pick in this year's draft, but that's not stopping their fans from forming stupid opinions. But back in 1989, they were 3 single guys trying to survive, working for the legendary Judd Heathcote. All right, Jamal, let me ask you this. If the U.S. said, you know what, you can go, what kind of a message would that send to the other athletes who in the past have been punished for similar instances? There it is.
We always
Beautiful
love to
sunset.
see those.
I feel like I'm on a date with you guys right now, watching the sunset together. I'm so happy to be with you. It doesn't matter, no one can recall its exact location.
I don't remember the address.
Or that some of the details have been lost through time.
All I know is it was very close to the Burger King.
What matters is that each man can remember how one home helped make them the leaders they are today.
I think it shaped all of us because none of us were making any money. You know, the only reason we weren't married is we didn't have enough money to take girls out on a date.
This was the life of 3 up-and-coming Michigan State coaches in the late 1980s. Tom Izzo, Tom Crean, and Jim Boylan are big time now, but back in 1989, they were 3 single guys trying to survive, working for the legendary Judd Heathcote and trying to save a buck by rooming together in a 3-bedroom house in Hazlitt.
But my room was good. It was certainly the best investment you could possibly make because Tom charged Jim Boylan and myself $200 a month to live with him.
Izzo owned the house.
I was a slumlord.
So he got to make the rules.
One of my favorite things about Tom Izzo is he hasn't changed a bit.
And just as his current players at Michigan State would attest, Izzo ran a tight ship. Crean and Boylan were expected to chip in with the chores and keep things clean, a skill Crean admits wasn't his strongest.
I'm sure I didn't carry my weight like Jim and Tom did, but fortunately they never kicked me out.
It took a little bit of digging, but we found it. Right at the end of the block, the house, the basketball laboratory, and the place where for 1 year, 3 men worked nonstop to perfect their craft and move closer toward their dreams.
It was great because we worked all day together. We stayed at the office, went home to sleep, and that was about it.
For each future head coach, there was no escaping basketball. And that was exactly the way they liked it. Because not only were they learning on the job, they were also learning from each other.
I learned from Tom Izzo that, you got to try to push your guys to a place they can't take themselves. And you do that by having a relationship with them first.
Inevitably, the trio went their separate ways. But while their careers have taken them in different places, they remain close, still connected by this house that in just a short time became their home.
You think about that group, Tom Crane's been to a Final Four, I've been to a Final Four, Jimmy's, been a part of 2 world championships and a head coach in the NBA. I'd say that there was pretty good water in that, in those places we lived.
Mike Lacett, 13 on your side sports.
We're never alone.
It's the multi-million-dollar Nike commercial that had the world buzzing.
The first time we saw it just gives you chills.
An ad with the most famous athletes in the world.
We have a responsibility
to make this world a better place.
And some amazing effects.
We'll go farther.
And then just when the commercial couldn't get any more exciting, one Muskegon family reached the apex of their fame.
Just from a basement, foam ball tennis to a Nike commercial.
The rise to stardom for 9-year-old Reed and his 14-year-old brother Drew came shortly after the pandemic began. With nowhere to go and nothing to do, the two began playing tennis in their basement.
We can come up really mad at each other.
The competition was so fierce it caught the attention of their mom, Tracy, who instead of stopping the match, filmed it and put it on Twitter.
We woke up to the sound of my mom's phone dinging because people were liking our tweet.
In just a matter of days, the video caught fire. NBC Sports reached out. as did Fox and their announcer Joe Buck.
Now moving toward the net. Good night.
After a few weeks, Nike wanted the clip, but there was a catch.
They were only going to use Reed.
But while Mom took the news hard, Big Brother amazingly didn't.
At first I was a little bit like, oh, it's disappointing just because it's like such a cool opportunity. But then it's like, man, it's so cool like that he got to be in it.
Nike didn't say how the footage would be used. And they definitely didn't explain that through split-screen TV magic, Reed would match up with someone who lives in Italy.
We'll find a way.
They nailed it. It looks fluid. I'm getting calls, texts like, I just saw Reed in a commercial on the Lakers game.
But rather than bask in his moment of individual glory, Reed never forgot that it couldn't have happened without Drew.
Technically, it was our video, not mine.
We'll come together for change.
Sure, Nike can spend a lot of money promoting a message,
I love him.
but that message is priceless. Mike Lacett, 13 on Your Side Sports. Much to the disappointment of everyone there, it was not a day for the ages at Comerica. In fact, at the Tigers-Indians game, fans were denied history not once, but twice. But for such a one-sided game, there was a significant amount of drama in this one. First, here's what Miguel Cabrera did, or rather didn't do. He went 0 for 3 with a pair of strikeouts. He remains one homer away from 500 in his career. However, while we didn't see any offense from him, we got plenty from the Indians. Second inning, they blew it open. Austin Hedges, with the bases loaded, gets the first of his 2 hits. This would bring in 2 runs. By the third, Cleveland had an 11-0 lead. Meanwhile, while that was happening, Cleveland starter Tristan McKenzie was killing it. He had a perfect game working, struck out 11, had no walks, but he did give up 1 hit. Happened in the 8th as Harold Castro denied him immortality with a single. Detroit, though, would still go on to lose 11-0. Afterwards, A.J. Hinch couldn't help but marvel at McKenzie.
Get to a new team and a new series.
Got to be positive. After a day off, Tigers will look to rebound Tuesday as they begin a 3-game set against the Angels. More baseball. Former Whitecap Spencer Torkelson is 1 step closer to the big time. The first baseman, who was in Double-A, got another promotion and is now headed to the Triple-A Mudhens. Between Single-A West Michigan and Erie this year, Detroit's 2020 top pick is batting .282 in 81 games. Also joining him in Toledo is another former Whitecap, Riley Green, who got called up as well. Meanwhile, NASCAR will be at Michigan International Speedway next weekend for the Firekeepers Casino 400. Tell you what, if that race is anything like what we saw in Indianapolis, we're in for some fun. The Big Machine Vodka 400, weird and wild. You got to see this. 5 laps left to go. The curving on the track starts to come apart, and it causes a big crash. Multiple cars were wrecked. This would go to overtime, and there we saw a crazy finish. 2 laps left. Chase Briscoe into the turn, pushed into the grass by Denny Hamlin. Briscoe gets a shortcut, so he takes the lead. Problem is, NASCAR deemed that move illegal, which knocked him out of contention. Briscoe would keep racing and then exacted revenge on Hamlin. Goodbye, Denny, and hello, A.J. Allmendinger, who takes first place and takes the race. The former IndyCar racer taking care of business at the Brickyard. Finally, talk about putting yourself on the map. Michigan State golfer James Piot doing just that at the U.S. Amateur Championship. Spartan senior able to rally from 3 strokes down on the final day. He becomes the first ever Michigan-born player to win the event. And in doing so, he automatically qualifies for the Masters, the U.S. Open, and the Open Championship. That's sports. Michael Barron's coming back with your final forecast after the break. A few years ago, at the end of a football game, I was taking pictures of the losing team as they walked off the field. Suddenly, I saw one of the players, a big senior lineman, coming toward me, threatening me if I didn't stop filming. I politely said I couldn't, and before there was any further interaction, he was taken away. I'm not sure how the rest of that conversation would have gone, probably not well, but I'll tell you what I would have told him. As a journalist, for good or bad, it's my job to get the story, and right now, you losing, unfortunately, is the story. I bring this up on the heels of a social media post from American swimmer Simone Manuel. Following a disappointing performance in Tokyo this week, she sent out this tweet, quote, "Please stop interviewing athletes after a disappointing performance before they have any time to process anything. Trust me, They gave it their all, nothing else people need to know at the time. Now, from a human element, I get where she is coming from, but I don't agree. It's a classic case of you can't have it both ways. Many athletes love the exposure the media gives them when things are going well. The same, however, cannot be said when it's the opposite. And that's simply not right. Asking what went wrong isn't wrong. But what's wrong here is them expecting us to act like we work in public relations and not in journalism. I'd love to hear what you think about this. Send me an email, mlacett@wzzm13.com, or find me at Twitter @MikeLacett.